Hello everybody, and welcome back to the channel. Before anyone says anything, yes, I know I am very, very late to the Swordsoul train. I was on my hiatus from YouTube and from Master Duel when the archetype came out, but finally getting around to it. It's just one of the decks that I need to check off my list. I love the archetype. It's a headache to play against because it is so very consistent, and it just is arguably, I think, probably the best deck in Master Duel right now. So there are a ton of different ways to build and construct this deck. You can play it however you'd like. You can play the Pot of Prosperity version with your Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer. There's a ton of different ways to play this deck. This build, for the most part, is a pretty standard build from what you're going to be seeing and what you're going to be playing through. We have lots of replays at the end going through the different combos that you can do with like the Tenyi Spirits if you don't open any of your Swordsoul names. It's just a really good, consistent deck and can get you really very, very, very far through the ranked ladder. So if you are new, please hit the subscribe button. Thank you all so much for 1,800 subscribers. That is an insane number, and I have more awesome content coming for you. So if you are new, hit the subscribe button. But let's go ahead and get into this deck. So Tenyi Swordsoul. I was immediately interested in this deck when it was revealed for the TCG, and I was really happy when I heard that it was finally getting imported to Master Duel. And with that being said, you know, it is just a straight up combo deck that gets you on multiple negates in your end board with the different Tenyi Spirits in your names, Incredible Ecclesia, just a ton of different things that you can do with this deck and things that you can play it. We run a versatile array of hand traps for everything, and it's just awesome. So we'll go ahead and get into it. So we're running our 3 different Tenyi Spirit names. We're running the 3 copies of Adhara, 3 copies of Ashuna, and 3 copies of Vashuda. If you don't know, the Adhara allows you to, if you control a face-up effect monster, you can banish it from your hand or graveyard to add a worm back from your banished pile back to your hand. Vashuda allows you to banish it and then target a card that your opponent controls and return it to the hand. So really good for removal for extra deck monsters. Just shove them right back to the extra deck. And then the Ashuna is the special summon from deck. You banish it, and then you can special summon a Tenyi Spirit aside from Ashuna from your deck. Face up to your side of the field, and then they all have the same ability to special summon themselves from the hand if you control no face up effect monsters, which is really good for starting, good for getting bodies on the field. So that is our Tenyi lineup, and then we are also playing 2 copies of Vessel for the Dragon Cycle, which is a Tenyi card. It is a Foolish Burial as well as an add for a Tenyi monster, so you can use this. You send a worm monster from your deck to the graveyard. Then if you control a face-up non-effect monster, you can add from your deck 1 Tenyi monster with a different name from the monsters sent to the graveyard. So you can send anything and then add a Tenyi Spirit from deck to your hand. So it is literally the most ashable thing in the world. Is a Foolish Burial as well as an in-archetype searcher for any Tenyi Spirit name. So really good card there. We'll go over the hand trap lineup real quick. We're playing 3 Max C, 3 Ash, and 3 Imperm, just the very standard lineup. If you wanted to account for like Fluanderees, you could replace the Imperm or the Max C, especially with copies of Dimension Shifter, things along those lines that are really good against Flunder in the top decks right now. So there is that. But just for the standard lineup, we got the 3 Max C, the 3 Ash Blossom, and the 3 Imperm. Very, very standard. Now, for the meat and potatoes of this archetype, we're playing 3 Swordsoul of Mo Yi. If it's normal or special summon, reveal a Swordsoul card or a worm monster, and then special summon a Swordsoul token, which is a level 4 worm, which is also a tuner. So you can literally just summon, get the token, and then go into your extra deck plays, which is incredible. So we're playing 3 of that, arguably the best card in the deck, alongside some of the other cards, but we're also playing 3 Swordsoul of Tai. You can banish a Swordsoul card or a worm monster from your graveyard and special summon that same token, the level 4 tuner. So just another way for you to be able to get out your tuners, to be able to go into your basically 1 card synchro summoning. When this archetype was first revealed, people were calling it the Zodiac, or like you know how like Zodiac is like your 1 card Xyz? Well, Swordsoul more or less acts as your one-card synchro engine, which is a cool way to think about it. So we're playing 3 and 3, and then we're playing 3 Incredible Ecclesia, the Virtuous. It is a Sidra. You can special summon if your opponent controls more monsters than you do, which is a summoning condition, is not an effect, so your opponent will not be able to respond to the actual summon. They'll be able to respond to, the summon itself, but you can just slap it down, which is really nice. And then you can quick effect, which is insane. You can tribute this card and then special summon a Swordsoul monster from your deck, which, on your turn, you can special summon this out without using your normal summon, and then use the effect to go into a Swordsoul of Mo-Yi if you don't have one in your hand, which will trigger its effect on special summon to reveal a worm or a Swordsoul in your hand to get the token, which is incredible. Incredible Ecclesia. Who would have guessed? Whatever, cheesy, whatever the hell aside, incredible card. And then the secondary effect has a really good application if you are playing the Destroyer Phoenix Enforcer build of this deck. Basically, during the end phase, if a fusion monster was sent to your graveyard this turn, you can add this card from your graveyard to your hand. So it's just recurability if you did want to play the Phoenix Enforcer route, which is extremely powerful, but it doesn't have an application for the more standard version of the deck. And then the last of the Swordsoul names, we're playing the 3 copies of the Long Wand, which is it's an incredible card. All of the main deck Swordsoul cards are just incredible. So you can discard another Swordsoul or Worm monster, special summon Long Wand from your hand, and then you get to special summon that token that is a level 4 Worm Synchro. So typically with your Taya and your Mo-Yi, you go into your level 8 Synchro monsters. With the Swordsoul, with the Long Wand, because it's a level 6 and you get your level 4 token on top of that, you can go into level 10 things like Baron, as well as the Supreme Sovereign Cheng-Ying, which is really good. So there's a lot of different a lot of different applications for different levels of synchro monsters that you can go into with your main deck monsters. And before I forget, all of the Swordsoul main deck monsters have effects that trigger if they are used as material for a synchro summon. So the best one here, Swordsoul of Mo-Yi, you get to draw a card. Taya, you get to Foolish Burial a Worm or a Swordsoul card. And then this one, the Long Wand, gives you a little bit of burn damage, so it burns your opponent for 1200, which is pretty damn good. And it's just a lot of versatility, gives you a lot of options as far as different combo trees and combo routes, and definitely stick around until the end because we're going to be showcasing a lot of what you can do, different routes that you can go to make your end boards. We're playing 3 Potted Desires for a couple reasons. We're playing mostly 3-ofs. I think there's only one card that we're playing that's a 2-of, and that's going to be the Vashuda, and if we don't see that, it's not the end of the world. And then the Vessel for the Dragon Cycle, which again isn't the end of the world if we banish both copies, but every single other card here is played at 3, so Potted Desires isn't the worst thing in the world to play, as well as Potted Desires works really well with the big boss monster of the Swordsoul archetype, the Cheng-Ying. It gains 100 attack and defense for each banished card, and that goes for both you and your opponent, and then your monsters your opponent controls lose 100 attack and defense. So it's kind of, the more you banish, the more of an advantage that you'll have on your opponent, because even just one card that's banished is a 200 point or a 200 attack point swing, and just lets you get over things so much easier. So there is that. We're playing 3 Potted Desires. Just it's great in this deck. We already went over Vessel. The Searcher, so Swordsoul Emergence, great, is just add a Swordsoul monster from your deck to your hand. Or if you control a Synchro monster, you can add a Worm monster instead, which is good. The one thing that I do want to emphasize with this build is, so in the TCG, Arch Nemesis Protoss, before it was banned, was a staple in every single Swordsoul Tenyi deck or Tenyi Swordsoul deck. And the reason that we don't really want to play it in this deck, or the reason that it's not as good as it could be, you can definitely include it and it will be a great inclusion. But for the most part, I've seen that people aren't really choosing to play Protoss just because there's so many different builds of things that are meta on Master Duel right now, that blinding a Protoss and using its effects isn't really all that advantageous, and you can use resources differently. If you wanted to do something else, instead of getting out the Protoss, you could go into another, like, Negate or something like that. But that's the reason that we don't play the Protoss in this deck specifically. We're playing 3 of the Swordsoul Sacred Summit, which is basically just a reborn for your Swordsoul monsters in your graveyard, or if you control a Synchro monster, kind of like Swordsoul Emergence, you can target a worm monster, just a straight-up worm monster instead. And then both of the Swordsoul Emergence as well as the Swordsoul Sacred Summit have effects that you can... They have effects that activate if they're banished. So you can target a... They basically have the same effect, is that you can target a Swordsoul monster or a worm monster you control and then increase or decrease its level by 1 until the end of the turn. So something that you could do with this is the Swordsoul of Taya. If you have either of these in the graveyard, you can use the effect to banish either of these cards to increase or decrease the level of your Taya, and then go into a level 7, such as Yazi, and things along those lines. So it gives you a little bit more versatility as far as what you can summon and what you can't. But yeah, that is the main deck. Let's go ahead and hop into the extra deck, where your big bodies are going to be coming from. So, starting things off, we're playing a vast array of Synchro monsters, and we'll just go through them. We're playing a couple of Yang Zing monsters. We're going to be playing one Yazi as well as one Baxia. Both of them are fantastic cards and have their own applications. Yazi specifically, your opponent can't target this card on the field with card effects. Fantastic, and you can only use the effects once per turn. You can target a Yang Zing monster you control and one card your opponent controls and destroy them. And then when this card you control is destroyed by battle or card effect, and it does trigger off of its own effect, you can special summon one worm monster from your deck in defense position. So something like that, you'd be able to go into a Swordsoul of Mo Yi and then go from there. The other Yang Zing that we are playing is Baxia. It is fantastic, and to get the best like the most advantage out of this card, you want to make sure that you use Swordsoul of Taya to go into it, and I will explain why in just a second. So when this card is synchro summoned, you can target cards on the field up to the number of different original attributes of the worm monsters used for the synchro summon of this card, and then shuffle them into the deck. Now, so Swordsoul of Mo Yi is a water, and all of the tokens that the Swordsoul monsters generate are water. So Swordsoul of Taya is a wind attribute, so you'll have a wind and a water as opposed to a water and a water. So you'll have 2 targets instead of just the one when you synchro summon Baxia using the Taya instead of the Mo Yi. And then once per turn, you can target one card you control and one level 4 or lower monster in your graveyard, destroy that card on the field, and if you do, special summon that other monster from the graveyard. So again, just really good recursion. You can go into a Mo Yi, you can get another Taya if you haven't already used the effect this turn, which again is just really, really good. And you can just go into a ton of different things. It's just a bunch of, it's removal as well as, extension potentially. Really, really good. Alright, so a little bit of a tech card, Crimson Blader. It is a generic level 8, which is really easy to go into in this deck. If this card destroys an opponent's monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, your opponent cannot normal or special summon level 5 or higher monsters during their next turn. So, a floodgate that your opponent cannot interact with on their turn because it activated the turn before, which is awesome. And on a 2800 body, that's going to be super easy for closing out games. If you can't quite go for game that turn, but you want to make sure that your opponent isn't going to be going crazy combo or anything like that on their turn, get out Crimson Blader, destroy something, and then just pass it back to them, and your opponent cannot do anything, since this game relies so heavily on special summoning a ton of different monsters every single turn. So I love Crimson Blader for that reason, for that exact reason. Getting into the other level 8s, we're playing one copy of Draco Berserker of the Tenyi. It's generic, which is really easy. When your opponent activates a monster effect, quick effect, you can banish it. Easy. Awesome. If this attacking card destroys an effect monster by battle and sends it to the graveyard, this card gains attack equal to the destroyed monster's original attack, and then it can make a second attack on a monster during that battle phase once per turn. So it's a little mini Boral Sword Dragon, but the thing is that the attack increase is permanent and it doesn't go away at the end of the turn. So even if you destroy something with 2,000 or more attack, you'll have a 5,000 attack Draco Berserker that can attack a second time. The attack gain effect is only once per turn, so you won't be able to gain the attack of both of the monsters that you destroy. If you do, But Draco Berserker of the Tenyi is just, it's such an incredible card, and it also acts as interruption because the quick effect, the banish your opponent's monster when they activate the effect, is just really, really good. So we play one copy of that for end boards where we can't get out the next card, which is Adamancipator Risen Dragite. So the excavation effect here is not important, but the more appropriate one here is it's a spell and trap negation if you have a water monster in the graveyard. And what is our most important Swordsoul that we run in the main deck is Swordsoul of Mo Yi, and it is a water monster, in fact. So if you have it in the graveyard, go into the Adamancipator Risen Dragite for spell and trap negation. Super easy, really good. It's a 3,000 body. It's just fantastic to have on your end board. We're playing two copies of the Swordsoul Grandmaster Chaizhao. Sorry for my pronunciation. But again, it's just if this card is synchro summoned, you can add to your hand or banish one Swordsoul card from your deck. So not monster or spell and trap, you can get one Swordsoul card. And then quick effect, you can banish a Swordsoul card or a worm monster from your graveyard, from your hand or graveyard, target one other effect monster on the field, negate its effects until the end of this turn, and then you can only use one effect of this card per turn. So you can only use either or, you can't use both, unfortunately. But it is a quick effect, which is good. So it is a monster effect negation as long as it's on the field. So we typically like to end on a Chaizhao as well as the Dragite. And the next card that we have here, which is the Baron de Fleur. It's just a generic 10 that we go into with the Long Wand, and it is a Omni Negate and Destroy. Once per turn, you can target one card on the field and destroy it. Awesome. While this card is face up on the field, when a card or effect is activated, quick effects, you can negate the activation, and if you do, destroy the card. It is a fantastic card, and it's very easy to go into. You go into it with, again, the Long Wand, so you get 1,200 points of burn damage when you summon it, which is also really good. And then there is a secondary effect that doesn't go off too often, but the thing to remember with this card is that the Omni Negation is only once while this card is face up on the field, so you only get that negation once. So if you used the effect, you don't have any more, but there is an option for you after that. So once per turn during the standby phase, you can target one level 9 or lower monster in your graveyard, return this card to the extra deck, and if you do, special summon that monster. So during the standby phase, if you have a Mo Yi in your graveyard, you can return the Baron and then special summon out the Mo Yi to go into even more synchro plays, which is great. But for the times that we are locked into worms from the extra deck, with Ashuna, we go into the Sovereign Chang'e, and we've talked about this card a little bit, but for each banished card, this card gains 100 attack and defense, and monsters your opponent controls lose 100 attack and defense. And then this next effect is not once per turn, which is really good, and it triggers its own effect. So if this card would be destroyed by a card effect, you can banish one card from your graveyard instead, and then because it banishes from the graveyard, it triggers this effect. If a card is banished, except during the damage step, you can banish one card from both your opponent's field and graveyard. Once per turns on those, but that is so incredibly good. That can trigger on your opponent's turn when you use it to protect, but it can also trigger if you use something like Taya, using the effect to banish, or any of the Tenyi Spirits effects that you have to banish them to use, also trigger the effect of the Chang'e, which is incredible. So that's our synchro lineup. We'll go ahead and get into the links, and then we'll go ahead and get into the replays that I have for you. So Monk of the Tenyi. If you've played Tenyi or seen this deck at all, you know Monk is very, very important. It is just a way for us to get out our Tenyi Spirit names. We special summon the Tenyi Spirit, link it into Monk, and then if we have a second Tenyi Spirit in our hand, we can go and make a second one. We're playing 2 Shaman of the Tenyi. This card probably could be put to 1 and make room for other things as well as Berserker. You can make room for I don't remember what what's it called? This guy right here, Chao Fang, Phantom of the Yang Zeng. You could replace that with this guy. there are a lot of different combos that you can do with that. So that is also an option. And then with the other one, you can probably replace this if you wanted to with a third copy of Monk. It's just really however you want to play this deck. But Shaman of the Tenyi, you can discard a card and target a worm monster in your graveyard, special summon it. Also, for the rest of this turn, you cannot activate the effects of monsters special summon from the extra deck, except for Tenyi monsters. So not a huge deal. If you are stuck with a bunch of Tenyi Spirit names and you can't get into your Synchro plays or your Sword Soul plays, you can go into a copy of Shaman and then just keep link climbing for a copy of Berserker, or you might be able to go into an Ashuna and a Vashuda and an Adhara. And Adhara is a tuner, and both Vashuda and Ashuna are level 7, so you can go into your Chengying, or excuse me, your Chai Shao to get your Sword Soul engine going. But there are ways that you can utilize Shaman of the Tenyi. And then the secondary effect is a little deceiving, honestly. A lot of people don't remember this. So when an attack is declared involving your face-up non-effect monster, you can target one card your opponent controls and destroy it. So let's say you have a Berserker and a Shaman and it's on your turn. And you attack with the Berserker, the effect of the Shaman will activate and you can destroy a card your opponent controls and then redeclare with Berserker to get in for a clean 3,000 and just clean up. So yeah, that is going to be the deck. I really like this deck. I love how it plays. It's such a headache to play against. It's a stupid deck, but I have had a ton of fun with it. I hope you enjoy the replays, and we'll go ahead and get into those right now. Alright, so welcome to the first of the 2 replays that I have for you, and with these replays, and especially with these decks, I really just like showing off like the combos, going through the steps, and showing you what the deck is capable of with, you know, optimal hands, and showing what it can end on. The replays themselves and the matches aren't super competitive, but if you would be interested in seeing some more competitive matches, against more meta decks, please let me know, and that's definitely something that I can put together and upload more often. But with these replays, and especially this first one, I want to show you what the deck is capable of with a suboptimal hand as well as an optimal hand, ending on really strong boards either way. So let's go ahead and just get straight into it. So we are going to activate the effect of Ashuna, special summoning itself out, and then immediately linking it away for a copy of Monk of the Tenyi. And now we were able to activate the effect of the Vashuda. And from here, we're going to activate the effect of the Ashuna because we can get out the Adhara as well as the Vashuda. Because we didn't open up our preferred starters, such as the Moyi or the Ecclesia, what we can do is we can still go into our Sword Soul line without committing to our normal summon, by getting out one of the level 7 Tenyi Spirits as well as the Adhara, which is, again, a tuner. So we can go into a level 8 Synchro, which is our Chai Shao. We can activate the effect to add our copy of the Long One. We're going to activate the effect of the Long One, pitching the Taya because we have the Reborn in hand, and we're going to activate the effect here to special summon itself out, and we can go into a copy of the Chengying because we are locked into summoning worms from the extra deck because we did use the effect of Ashuna. But now we have our Chai Shao as well as our Chengying out, and we're going to use the effect to burn for 12. Now we're going to activate the effect of the Sacred Summit, getting back out the Taya. Taya's effect is going to activate, and we are going to banish the Long Wan to get out our token, and then from there we can go into a copy of Draco Berserker of the Tenyi. And this, our opponent's about to scoop, so I just want to pause it beforehand. But yeah, so this is a suboptimal board that still has a Maxi in hand as well as multiple interruptions that play off of each other. The Chai Shao effect to banish and affect our opponent's board activates the effect of the Chai Shao that allows us to banish from our opponent's graveyard as well as the field. And then the Draco Berserker of a Tenyi, this is a very, very good board. We have Maxi in hand, and we're going to be set for next turn. Our opponent just ended up scooping anyway, so it didn't actually matter, but I did just want to show what this deck is capable of. If you don't open the Moyi or the Ecclesia or your preferred starters, it's still very powerful and very explosive, but we'll get into another replay that is a very optimal way to play it and ends on just a crazy board. So we'll see it in just a second. Alright, so like I was saying, this replay here shows just how crazy and explosive this deck can be. So this is a very, very optimal hand, and the way I like to think about it is if you open all three of your Sword Soul names, the Mo Yi, the Long Wan, and then Emergence is the stand-in for the last one. What you can do is you can do this full combo, and it is absolutely crazy just how everything works out, and we're going to go ahead and just show this combo. So we're going to start off by using our Adhara to get our Tenyi Spirits in action, in rotation. We're going to immediately link away for the Monk, normal summon the copy of the Mo Yi, revealing the Emergence in hand to get ourselves out that token, and then immediately synchro into our copy of the Grandmaster Chai Xiao. We're going to chain link 1, the Chai Xiao, chain link 2, the Mo Yi. This is very important to do because we want to make sure to chain block our Searcher. The Mo Yi itself, if it gets ashed, is not the biggest deal, just because we will have the Chai Xiao that's chain blocked to get the card that we want. So we want the Reborn, and so from here we're going to activate the Emergence to get ourselves a copy of the Taya. And then we are going to use the Long Wan, pitching the Taya because we added the Reborn in hand. And then we are going to use the Long Wan to get out the token, going into our Baron, which is super, just it's an incredible card. We're going to be able to do 1,200 points of damage because of our Long Wan's effect. And then we're going to use the Sacred Summit, bringing back the Taya that we pitched off of the Long Wan. Taya's effect will be able to activate, banishing the Long Wan, getting us out a token. And then from there, we can go into our last piece, which is the Adamantipator Risen Dragite. Taya's effect will activate, and we're going to dump a Vashuda. We're going to set our Infinite Impermanence. And one thing that I did forget about before I passed the turn is we have a copy of Adhara in our graveyard that we could have activated to get our Long Wan back to our hand, which would have been good for follow-up next turn. We can do that next turn as well because we still have the Monk of the Tenyi on there, and we do have plays that we can do. But as is, we have an Omni Negate, a Monster Negation, and a Spell and Trap Negation just for the monsters, but we also have a set Infinite Impermanence as well as an Ash Blossom, which is 5 negates, which is kind of nuts to think about. There's not a whole lot of decks that are going to be able to play through 5 negates unless they have Kaijus, or board breakers, stuff like that. But this is an insane board to end on, and because of this is the best deck in Master Duel. I'm very certain of that. There will be more decks, in the future that will be able to compete with this deck, but as of right now, putting out a base 3 negates with an optimal hand, and it's not very hard to do. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead. The match itself was very anticlimactic. They just ended up normal summoning the Dark Hex Sealed Fusion and then passing back to us. So we just go ahead and draw the Sword Soul Emergence. We just go ahead and clear things up. Use the effective Baron to destroy, and then we can get in for well over game, not having to use any of our negates. But yeah, this was this deck. I love this deck. It's such a cool deck. It has a lot of cool interactions, and like I was saying, if you guys have any interest in seeing more meta games like this deck against Flunder or any other things, please let me know. I would love to be able to pump out some content that you guys want to see, and if that is matches against actual meta decks, I can definitely provide for that. But thank you guys so much for 1,800 subscribers. If you are new, please hit the subscribe button. We have more awesome Master Duel content coming your way, and I will see you guys very, very soon. Have a great day. Take care.